Let's begin with the preliminaries.
Shiva Chandra Damshu Lakabji Soki Shimsho Gendun Lakabji Trile Naga Jogyo Lakabji. From now until the attainment of unsurpassed awakening, I, or sentient beings equal space, go for refuge to the root source of all blessings. We go for refuge to the deities, bestowers of supremacy. We go for refuge to the Kaginis, dispeller of all obstacles. We go for refuge to the Buddha, the first among humans. We go for refuge to the Sublime Dharma, peaceful and free from attachment. We go for refuge to the Sangha, the supreme field of initiation. We go for refuge to the Dharma, masters of activity. Namo, from now to the attainment of unsurpassed awakening, I and all sentient beings equal space. Go for refuge to the Guru, source of all blessings. We go for refuge to the deities, bestowers of supremacy. We go for refuge to the Kaginis, dispeller of all obstacles. We go for refuge to the Buddha, the first among humans. We go for refuge to the Sublime Dharma, peaceful and free from attachment. We go for refuge to the Sangha, the supreme field of illumination. We go for refuge to the Dharma, as masters of activity. Nyayam Paramai Samche Nuna Rangashim Deva Chola Nampani Laga Kulula Gamyon Yampe Sanchodi Janju Nimbo Toshu Dagi Dagi Drodru Samchen Kundoshi Sangye Gopam Sechir Topaja Deshi Rusa Dorje Mimpolam Lame Chodi Rabbe Sampagadi. May all sentient beings of samsara be free from suffering, joyful and truly abide in supreme happiness. I venerate the supreme mind impartial toward all, in order to attain a heart awakening. In order that faithful benefit the beings of six realms, must attain the stage of Buddhahood in this very great lifetime. Therefore, I would very diligently surpass teaching, a path absolutely clear of God's essence. May all sentient beings of samsara be free from suffering, joyful and truly abide in supreme happiness. I venerate the supreme mind impartial to all, in order to attain the heart of awakening. In order that I may fully benefit the beings of six realms, I must attain the stage of Buddhahood in this very lifetime. Therefore, I will very diligently surpass teaching, a path that leads me to the great God's essence.
And rising in a radiant, luminous, yet apparently empty form, as a glorious radiation of compassion for all sentient beings, arising as Vajrasattva.
Yoya Om Benza Sato Samaya Manupalaya Benza Sato Tvenopa Tishtadrito Me Bhava Suto Kayo Me Bhava Supo Kayo Me Bhava Anurakto Me Bhava Sarva Siddhi Me Prayasya Sarva Karma Sucha Me Titsam Shriyam Guruhum Aha Om Bhagavan Sarva Tathagata Bendra Mame Mucha Bendre Bhava Mahasamaya Sato Bendra Sato Samaya Manupalaya Vendra Sato Twinova, Tishta Drito Me Bhava, Sutokayo Me Bhava, Supokayo Me Bhava, Anurakto Me Bhava, Sarva Siddhi Me Prayacha, Sarva Karma Sucha Me, Tisam Shriyam Kuruham, Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan, Sarva Tathagata, Vendra Mame Munsha, Vendri Bhava Maha Samaya Sattva. Vendra Satta Samaya Manupalaya, Vendra Satta Twinova, Trishta Drito Me Bhava, Sutokayo Me Bhava, Supokayo Me Bhava, Anurakto Me Bhava, Sarva Siddhi Me Prayacha, Sarva Karma Sucha Me, Tisam Shriyam Kuruham, Ha 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 Ho Bhagavan, Sarva Tathagata, Vendra Mame Munsha, Vendri Bhava Maha Samaya Sattva. Om Benzra Sataha, Om Benzra Sataha, Om Benzra Sato.
Joyan Sashi Porchu Chuching Metodram Riya Vinci Nida Yambadi Sangye Jingla Mide Purvai Rukunam Zak Jingdu Shrubarsho Om Guru Deva Ratna Ranga Spratijya Swaha. These moistened with scented water, arranged with flowers, and adorned with summer, the four continents and sun and moon. By offering the visualized Buddha feeling, all migrating beings take birth in the pure Buddha field. Om Guru Deva Dakini Ratna Ranga Spratijya Swaha. Yaya Om Om Rangre Kada Zinkamsu Aranganga Me Bodhana Arangsa Sawe Lamala Dadi Nungwe Sowande Jadu Drupa Jinjilo. In the Buddha field of one's own original pure awareness, in the palace of unceasing irradiance, as long as vibrant energy, the root guru, will supplicate the devoted mind, bless my accomplished rainbow body. In the Buddha field of one's own original pure awareness, in the palace of unceasing irradiance, as long as vibrant energy, the root guru, will supplicate the devoted mind, bless my accomplished rainbow body. So very, very important to when placing one's root guru and the lineage masters above the head in the form of Guru Rinpoche is to contemplate these three major statements of pith instructions of Dzogchen really, really clearly over and over and over again, because they're so important. You've got some of the highest instructions for contemplation you could ever imagine in those three realizations, great realizations in those three statements. So continuing on with the from page 30, the last paragraph, page 30 of Lho Nuden Dorje's dedication aspiration found within the Preliminary Liberating Instructions of the Gongpo Yangzab. So though mind is a supreme space free of obscuration. That's a great realization. That just frees. Finding that all this experience is absolutely free of any taints, obscurations, any hindrances. Nuden Dorje reminds us that the path of liberation is causal. We have to perfect all, to quote, we have to perfect all the stages of primordial wisdom through the conduct of Samantabhadra Bodhisattva. So we can't skip these important causal elements. We need to train in perfecting all stages, discover and realize that which is beyond training. Though one may have made tantric commitments to always carry, so I give a metaphor or an example here. If one receives full empowerment, one maybe have made a commitment to always carry and hold a bell and dorje, the two major symbols of the tantric path of wisdom and compassion. And one may carry these for decades, years, and very useful as symbols. So you take a commitment, a vow to always carry these with you and use these. Yes, but that's very different than manifesting it. Otherwise, you're just carrying brass. It's a lot of brass. It's weight in your suitcase. Yes, and so you really have to embody and try to actually realize these. Then you can hold them or not hold them, but you now hold them. That's called Vajradhara, holder of the thunderbolt or holder of the Vajra, of the enlightenment mind. And there's nothing to hold. It means you can carry it wherever you go because it is the natural state. Then the intention is profound. So way more profound, although you may have to start there, it's way more profound than saying, I'm a holder of the Vajra and bell. It's the intention that's more profound. And then one may compassionately hold a bronze device for others' awakening. So now it's for everybody. Yes? Thus Nagarjuna, who one of the great Indian masters, says about bodhisattvas who've understood causality, emptiness of mind's nature. I think this is absolutely beautiful. A beautiful verse. Extraordinary. From the Bodhicitta Vivarana. Number 80, verse 88, those who understand this emptiness of phenomena, yet also conform to the law of karma and its results, that is more amazing than amazing, that is more wondrous than wondrous. So I've been speaking a lot about this. This is bringing together effortlessly, seamlessly, with no difficulty, no challenge, is the unity of causality and emptiness. So you can seamlessly move and bring the two together. This is really important. That would be that would be a wonderful teaching to give here, but we need a week. The Bodhicitta Vivarana, I gave a long weekend, gave a weekend in New Zealand, and now I realize I need to do it right, full week. But that's an extraordinary text that goes through the entire development of the Dharma at such a profound level from one of the greatest enlightened masters of Indian Buddhism. Then on page 31, the next line, without objectifying the meaningful benefit of others, according to the capacity of disciples, the rain of Dharma falls corresponding with their interest. Many ways to come to these two lines, but one cannot dispute the benefit the extraordinary benefits that of training in the Vajrayana for the practitioners, going beyond any conceptualizations, but also merging that with all kinds of fine discrimination of causality, of cause and effect. And this kind of training and going beyond any conceptualizations and the qualities of the bodhisattva stages and the Buddha nature cannot be reduced to an objectifiable reference. So this is the reference here. You can't objectify the meaningful benefit of others, it's beyond compare. It's beyond any kind of conceptual understanding. The benefits of Dharma, and especially the extraordinary practices of, I would call the accomplishment practices of bodhisattvas, found in the generation stages of texts, is quite something. And then it says, depending on their karmic habit patterns of positive capacity, it is their inherent power, like the force that can be applied by the size of a giant tank full of water, or a giant tank. The bigger the tank, the bigger the force. So today we were discussing, or it was yesterday, maybe this morning, about the size of a water tank outside here. And I'd like to see a large tank, and someone else says, would a smaller tank do? If I can get a larger tank, I would. Larger tanks give more force. Larger tanks have more capacity. So you want to build the greatest capacity you can. So I think you've heard this probably from me 20 or 30 times, but I'll say it again. I think it's so lovely. Many of you, I think all of you, received teachings from the lineage of Palta Rinpoche, especially the 3 statements of Gerab Dorje, right? Mm-hmm. And Gerab Dorje, when he was very young, Palta Rinpoche, when he was very young, was recognized as an emanation of a great enlightened being. And I think by the age of 18, he had written his first Dzogchen text. Fairly highly accomplished young man. But I think all of you know that he requested his teacher for 25, over his life, 25 individual sets of receiving the preliminary liberating instructions, and he did 25 sets. Most people do 4. We now ask people to do 1. Why would someone like that do 25 sets if they weren't extraordinarily high? So if you were to do 25 sets, I've read of people who've done, by the age of 21, something like 7 sets of extraordinary foundation practices. The capacity, it's like doing scales in music, doing certain exercises. The capacity, it's like if you were, we always want to kind of go to sentences in when we're learning a new language, go to sentences, but just learning grammar, learning the basis of the language, hearing it properly. Then when you go to do any activity with it, all that basis is there. So why would someone do that? Because they wanted an extraordinary capacity for liberation. So I'm not trying to scare you off and say, oh boy, we're really missing it because we haven't done 25. But maybe his realization was, the greater his capacity, the greater he would be a gift for other sentient beings. There was one teacher I've read about in the biography of Tulku. Who was it?
Blazing Splendor.
Yeah, Blazing Splendor.
Or
Organ Tulku Rinpoche. And one of his relatives, distant relatives, I think awoke at the age of 8 because an unknown Lama was sweeping his floor outside his room and ticked him off and said, why don't you act who you're supposed to be, you entitled whatever. And the kid said to the Lama, the unknown Lama sweeping the floor outside his room, said, so like, how am I going to do that? Or, tell me. Wow. He said, look at your mind, know the nature, something like, know the nature of your mind. So the young man did, young Tulku did, look at the nature of the mind. Okay, got it. He did. He said, after that, nothing ever varied after that. It was completely done. But he also says in Blazing Splendor, he said, this, I think it was Samten Yogi, don't ever ask me how to meditate. You have to ask other people how to do that. He had no gradual stages. So he taught masters of masters. He was just one of these great masters that went around teaching liberating instruction, fifth instruction. He said, don't ask me how to meditate. I think that's exactly what it says in the text. Don't ask me how to meditate. So from the age of 8, it was just pointed out to him, well, your mind. Okay, got it. He did. He got it. He got it. He also perfected it. But that's extraordinary. So I wouldn't rely on that for any of us, for that to just kind of happen. because if it hasn't happened, it probably won't. So we have to go through. And if it does, as Namjin Rinpoche said, even if it does, as Namjin Rinpoche has said, then those individuals that do need to get worked very hard for the benefit of other beings. So my interpretation of Palta Rinpoche doing 25 sets of preliminaries was for the benefit of other sentient beings. So his capacity was extraordinary. And it was. It turned out it was absolutely extraordinary. So this is, to me, what it means is an extraordinary benefit to other sentient beings. So you want a very large water tank to water your garden, put out the fires, yes?
Yeah.
Whatever you can afford. So ancient texts talk about three types of practitioners: those who are slow in taking up the Dharma, the middling ones, they're fast and slow, they go up and down, kind of like a yo-yo. They're fast, they're slow, they're fast or slow, and then there's the quick ones, the rare ones who get it right away and continue to have excellent experiences. And the author here, the Lho Nuden Dorje, is stating the riches, the reign of Dharma, only enters practitioners due to their range and degree of interests, which are rooted in myriad karmic patterns due to interdependence. So you have to understand, every one of you in the room has a different trajectory in life. So what applies generally to the group may not apply to certain individuals at a given time. So the preliminary liberating instructions are excellent for everybody, but not necessarily at the right time, at the same time. So there could be somebody that practices the preliminary liberating instructions, but actually would greatly benefit 3 months, 6 months of meditating on loving kindness in the form of Amitabha, or perhaps out of the Vimutti Magga, Visuddhi Magga, would do them tremendous benefit, you see? So you have to realize the reign of Dharma has such vast spreading, but it has a lot to do with the interest of the practitioner. That's what I like to see. I like to see, often I'll ask you, what would you like to do? Where's your inclination? Because if you're interested, that will go much further than being told you will do this. Right? So you want to get to a place where you want to find out the interests of practitioners. So this is because it's interdependent. It's one of the reasons why living examples, the guru, the Lama, is absolutely essential. So the role of the Lama is to present many different Dharma riches, all 84,000, which means a huge amount, appropriate for those of the three different capacities and interests. And Jitsen Sumgon said the three kinds of Dharma wheels, that is the Hinayana, Mahayana, and Vajrayana, are differentiated according to the realization of the audience. So one has to get a sense of what the realization is of the individual, of what they can hear. So everybody in this room is hearing a different Dharma discourse. Absolutely. Totally, utterly different Dharma discourse, depending on the level of realization and what one can grasp what the teacher's saying. And if you were to repeat it to each other, as I've heard many times, no, he never said that. Oh, he did say that, but I actually heard it completely different. So that depends on one's capacity. Therefore, one teaches all three cycles. So the reign of Dharma falls on many beings. And furthermore, it is certain that one proceeds only gradually. So remember, from the words of Jitsen Sumgon, he said, very clear on this, one proceeds gradually. This is to do with a big debate that was in Tibet and other places, which is the sudden path or the gradual path. And he was adamant, it's gradual. And so am I. I not just because it's just a Sumgon, but I completely agree. You may have sudden experiences, but sudden is like when you notice that a flower bursts open because you weren't looking at every second. If you look at every second of a flower or a plant's growth, then you may see the beginning all the way through the causal factors. But normally we don't do that. We notice big things. So gradual, there's nothing wrong with gradual. Is that okay? Nothing wrong with gradual. There is not just one teaching or meditation. Actually, there is. There's only one teaching and there's only one meditation. There's not, I should really clarify. There's many different trainings, but there's only one meditation. Mm-hmm. From the standpoint of Vajrayana, the meditation is Buddha nature. That's what meditation is. It's Buddha nature. Mahamudra Dzogchen. But from the point of view of meditation training, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different types of meditation trainings, depending on the proclivities and interest and capacities of different people. Okay. It is said that a bodhisattva can create a reign of Dharma with extraordinary power and capacity if they are established in the 10th bodhisattva ground. Maybe they can do a little bit of it before then, but when a being attains the 10th bodhisattva ground, it is said that they can actually spread a rain of blessings to countless beings, blessings of Dharma. A Dharma teacher helps beings become interested in genuine Dharma. So that's one of the roles of a Dharma teacher, is to keep people focused on what constitutes a genuine path of liberation and not side paths. On the side of the Vajrayana teacher, they require and acquire considerable skill and means derived from months and years in the presence of their root teachers, the activities and understanding that come from realizations of the 4 Buddha activities and the 5 pristine wisdoms. And realization and demonstration of Dharma qualities takes time to mature and depends on the student's proclivities, confidence, and interdependence with the proclivities of the Lama. So you have to realize it's a working relationship as the teacher expands the field of their Dharma activities and their radiation from the central point of Buddha nature. Then also the students' interests grow with that depending on their proclivities. An interdependent phenomenon. Yeah. So I think you've heard of stories of Mahasiddhas in India and other places who took on students who were not even interested in Dharma. Have you read those sort of wonderful stories? The young male that goes up to a teacher and finds a teacher and says, can you give me a mantra for me to get the best bride in the whole region? This person's an enlightened being. Of course I can. Of course I can. What do I have to do? You have to clean the kitchen first. No, but could I have the mantra? Well, why don't you clean the kitchen and we'll talk about it, you see? So it goes on and on and on. And eventually after 4 or 5 or 6 years, they no longer ask the question, could you give me the meditation to find the best bride? It's questions of liberation, it's questions of so on. So it takes time to move that. Or could I be the wealthiest person in the whole universe? This sort of thing. So by discerning the capacity of disciples and their interests, we're going back, that's a quote from the text, by discerning the capacity of disciples and their interests, a skillful teacher is able to show as to slowly shift mundane interest towards a clear aspiration for realization of Mahamudra Dzogchen. And of course, Namgyal Rinpoche was an extraordinary example of that, where he helped so many people through their different interests. Sufi maybe, tarot, Western mysteries, Theravadan, Mahayana, Vajrayana, science, psychotherapy, you name it. He was there to try to get people interested in Dharma through their various interests, and had the patience over decades to help them through all the noise. Yeah, the noise, to keep moving them towards a pure Dharma. Fantastic. Yeah. Then on page 32, the line in the dedication aspiration, in the aspiration text, having ripened disciples into the state of the three Vajras, may they obtain Buddhahood in the vast dimension of Buddha Samantabhadra. This is really, of course, what we're up to. This is a reference to ripening and guiding practitioners into the accomplishment of the three enlightened aspects of body, speech, and mind, the three Vajras, the three enlightened, the three qualities of the Buddha's bodies. Refers to the three kayas, or the trikaya, the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. And this is the goal of all Mahayana and Vajrayana practice and accomplishment. So you may say, well, this is not what I want to do. Correct? You may say, I don't want to do this. And that's fine. So different teachers have different students or people that study with them who are not of that inclination. They're not there yet. So it's important that they provide opportunities or send them to other teachers, perhaps, or sometimes to teach bodies of work that is more suitable to that than the meditations that directly ripen or bring out the three Buddha bodies. And it will take time. Not only do we attain to the peace and rest in the unborn nature of all phenomena, the Dharmakaya, the wisdom of discerning self-awareness, but out of compassion emanated bodies of enlightened light and sound, the Sambhogakaya, and the enlightened physical manifest bodies that life forms can see and relate to, called Nirmanakayas. So if you read the biography of Gampopa, Gampopa wished to attain the three Buddha bodies, but he actually found that the instructions he was receiving from his masters, the Kadampa, weren't sufficient for him to do that. He had to find a teacher for that. And as he says in his biography, if it wasn't for the instructions and the instructions of Milarepa, he just wouldn't have done it. And actually, even after he spent 13 months with Milarepa sent him off to go into retreat until full attainment, complete full attainment. I remember reading the biography. It was actually only after some time he went back to his Kadampa teachers. He talked to them. He spent some time. And it was only a little bit after that he started to realize that he was actually, for the first time, gaining direct experience of the three Buddha bodies, which is really what he was after. And that is a considerable accomplishment. So this is asking for the complete attainment of Buddha Samantabhadra, the primordial Buddha. This is an inconceivably vast, non-conceptual nature of all phenomena, the primordial awakeness. Ultimate purity, undifferentiated awareness, primordial awareness without any fabrication. So this is our meditation. We want to meditate on the nature of Samantabhadra. So you'll see that in all of the, almost all of the, is there a picture here? You'll see that in Dzogchen and Nyingma teachings, you'll see that Samantabhadra is at the head of the refuge tree. So this is where all the Dharma teachings flow, undifferentiated. The three roots of Guru Yidama Dakini are the nature of Buddha Samantabhadra. The Buddha Samantabhadra can manifest as a host of different forms, the two form bodies of Buddhas in the myriad forms, such as the 100 peaceful and wrathful meditation deities, all for the purpose of liberating beings. So I'm going to caution, I think you've heard me say this before, for many Westerners, all these form beings are kind of Indian, Tibetan, mythical things. But I warn you that when there's enough purification, this is exactly what's going to come out. So when people say, well, they don't exist, I have to be just a bit clear with them and say, well, then the purification isn't there. In terms of realization, the form bodies of awakened beings, the Rupakaya, the Sambhogakaya and Nirmanakaya, is more real than apparent phenomena of sentient creatures. Okay? So one has to have enough purity. And if you don't have the confidence of that, that could be not enough retreat work. They will come with enough purification of the channels. I can tell you that some of your fellow students have encountered that and were very surprised when they did. And I'll quote one practitioner who was in a 6-month retreat who was practicing mandal offering. I love this expression when they came to me to give a report, and they said, I used to never believe in Pure Lands. I never believed all that mythical kind of Buddhist stuff about Pure Lands and dakinis and yidams and all that. Now I do. Now I do for sure. It blew them away, you see? So you have to reach a certain degree of karmic purity to be able to start to see these figures, for them to come to you, to manifest, not manifest delusionally or just in dreams, but actually really manifest and go, this is actually for real. This is for real. So take it as something that is worth working towards. Yeah, not for far out, but realize that the universe is manifesting in its purest form these figures for the awakening of beings, including spitting out nirmanakaya, spitting out beings. You know what I mean? Spitting out? I mean that in a good way. I don't mean giving birth to beings, manifesting beings that appear like a human or appear in a physical form that people can relate to, yes? Or a creature can relate to for the purposes of liberation. Very important. Then on page 33, in this life, the life that is conditioned and permanent and empty. The constituents, we're back to the text, in this life, the life that is conditioned and permanent and empty. The constituents, the 5 elements, are complete as a Buddha field of the 5 families. People have told me that's a bit mysterious to them, that line. Okay, can you please explain that? That's really not so comprehensible. So I'll go into that. Yes?
If Samantabhadra can manifest as a host of different forms, and you see a form different, if you see a form other than Samantabhadra,
It's Samantabhadra.
is it obvious that it is? If
If you realize one yidam, you've realized them all.
so the form is irrelevant?
Not necessarily. Not necessarily. If you realize any of the 100 wrathful and peaceful yidams, you've realized the body, speech, and mind of Samantabhadra. So in that sense, after that, the realization, the unfolding of each of the yidams goes very, very quickly, if not immediately, because it's the same nature. But the qualities that are expressed are of 100 different flavors. So that's good question. All of you have good questions, of course. But the expression 100 different flavors is the forms may appear different. They display different qualities, but the essence is the same. Encountering Tara fully is encountering Hevajra. But the qualities that are encountered appear differently for different interests and different proclivities. So it's a faster ripening for some people with Hevajra than it is with white Tara or green Tara. Much faster for a Vajradakini for some than for others. But exactly the same Buddha nature and the same Buddha bodies, appearing differently. So we have different trees out there. Yes, we have fir trees and arbutus. There's a maple there. There's a different color maple, 2 different types of Japanese maples. Yes? They're all trees, displaying different forms. Got it? It's all Samantabhadra. And in the Sarma tradition of the Gelugpa, Kagyu, Sakya, it's Vajradhara. Same. So you'll see that in the Drikung Kagyu tradition, the Nyingma tradition with the Drikung Kagyu tradition, the Dzogchen tradition called Gongpo Yangzab, at the head of the refuge tree is Vajradhara. Samantabhadra Vajradhara. It's Kagyu Nyingma. Like this. It's a Nyingma tradition within a Kagyu lineage of the Dzogchen tradition. And off to the side, you'll see Padmasattva, which is Guru Rinpoche in the form of Vajradhara in union with Yeshe Shogol, which looks very much like all the images of Samantabhadra in union. Same realization. Okay.
May I ask a question based on the same theme here? I forget what it was. There, at one point in the text, it talks about the offerings that Samantabhadra Bodhisattva made, and who or what is Samantabhadra?
Similar names.
Same name.
Same name. Are they two beings? No. Are they two different beings? Yes.
Confused.
There's multiple Arbutuses out there. They're one Arbutus, but they're two different manifestations.
I see.
Let me give you another example. I'm trying to remember which tree it is, but there's a grove of trees somewhere, which is about 2 kilometers, 4 kilometers, maybe aspen. I think it's aspen somewhere. That's the same aspen tree.
Right.
Oh, they connected.
Same aspen. It's a clone. All manifesting differently, but it's the same tree. So right below our feet right now, there are fungi that may be 20, 30, 40 kilometers spread out, and it's all the same creature. But it will fruit above the ground, and you'll say, look at that mushroom, and look at that mushroom, and look at that one over there. They're the same being, differentiating and manifesting differently. So Samantabhadra was a very famous bodhisattva. Is he Samantabhadra Buddha or not? Yes and no. And of course, ultimately, yes. So who are all of you? Samantabhadra Buddha in seed form. And who are all of you? Samantabhadra Bodhisattva in seed form. Is that helping?
It is, but I have a bit more.
And you're a mushroom. And you're a mushroom. Budding here out of the space of awakened mind, appearing in the form of a lighter brown top and a lower brown top with red and black socks and so on and so expressions, but actually awakeness manifesting in the form of a manifestation called Teague.
Pretty cool.
Got it? Yeah. So you just have to come back to that. That's called your original face. In the teaching, it's called your original face, your original nature. The whole process of teaching is to get comfortable with the original primordial face of experience, not all the clothing. So if you look around the room, what do you see? Normally we say, if we were using common language, we'd look around the room and say, I see Ted, I see Ava, I see Terry over there, I see Michael, right? Mara, all different people, yes? Look around, tell me what you really see. What's the facts of the matter? What do you see? Take a look around.
People.
Do you see people, or what do you really see?
Seed Buddhas.
Radiant beings.
No, come on, let's not be so zen.
Because
Mostly clothes. And what are you relating to? Are you relating to the being, or are you relating to the clothes? Are you relating to the dead skin cells, which cover their entire body, or being sloughed off by a number of million per day? What is it you're really relating to?
An idea, yeah.
An idea. And what is that idea? The manifestation they put out. The clothing, the style, the personality. So, what's our mission? We want to look beyond that. We want to get used to the original face so we can see the conditioning. But when we meet a being, when we experience beings, we experience their Buddha nature. Both. Both. How do you become familiar with that? You have to realize that within yourself. You start by experiencing it within the guru. It's called guru yoga. Eventually you experience it that the guru, the outer guru, is just the outer guru. There's an inner guru. The Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, the Nirmanakaya. Then you discover it in yourself as an identical nature. From there you can see the personality aggregates, the display of the mushroom. I like mushroom, by the way. The fungi, the budding fungi, and not be confused that the budding fungi is none other than Buddha Samantabhadra manifesting in different forms. It's very similar to Christianity, right? God manifests in different ways. Same mind, just budding. Think of fungi. Fungi is really good. But I'm not trying to call you a bunch of mushrooms. You know that. I like mushrooms. Fruiting bodies, how's that? A bunch of fruiting bodies. And the fruiting bodies display themselves at the space luminosity of the mind and take on different forms. To do what? Find the original nature, both form and not form, of the original nature of freedom. It's just right there. That's what you want to find. Okay? Fruiting body? Fruiting bodies of Samantabhadra Adi-Buddha. And look, if you look at the refuge tree, what do you see? The whole thing stems from the Adi-Buddha at the top, all radiating out as different forms. Just like trees. All the same tree. Treeness with different manifestations. How about are all the leaves on that maple out there? Is that beautiful red maple, reddish maple? Are the trees the same? Are the leaves same or different? What would you say? Have you examined each and every leaf? What would you say though if you did?
Probably different.
Every single one of them is uniquely different, coming out of the same tree. How about every cell of the maple? What would you say? Same or different? If you started to examine every single cell, would you say, let's say you examined 100,000 cells, would you say the same or different? Absolutely different. I've done that. I can tell you definitively that when I've grown a clone of a single diatom in a bottle this big from a single cell, and it's grown up and it's 100,000 or 200,000 cells and chains and filling the jars, beautiful to see. From a single clone, I had the experience, and actually Raphael had it at the same time I did, because we were looking at it for days and days and days, weeks, went on. Oh my God, every one of them is a unique cell. But they all come from one nature. That was a profoundly religious experience. I remember I was blown away. Because you think you're looking at a clone, you get told, well, it's a clone, right? It's a clone. It's a clone. Sure, it's a clone. But it's absolutely unique. Every one of them. Now you can see something that's only 40/1000th of a millimeter across under a microscope, and you're going, every one of them is different.
So there's no such thing as a clone in the way it's typically meant.
That's correct. That's correct. It's a misunderstanding of what clone means. Every single clone that's produced will be a unique individual entity with a lot of similarities. But just like twins aren't the same. You could clone all the humans you want, and because of the nature of conditioning, they'll be absolutely unique, but exhibit some similarities. Have you wondered about your siblings coming out of the same womb, the same mother and father? Have you ever noticed that? How uniquely different they are? Sometimes you say, are you of the same family? Did you even come from the same planet? Have you ever had that expression to your siblings? Then you get the idea. Have you ever had that? Like, do you even know me? Okay, let's continue. In this life, on page 33, in this life, the life that is conditioned and permanent and empty, the constituents of the 5 elements are complete as a Buddha field of the 5 families. This next line refers to the 3 signs of insight. Anicca, Dukkha, Anatta, as taught mostly in the Hinayana path, is transience, the fact of transience, the insight of dukkha, and the insight of anatta, of non-self nature, taught by the Buddha in his first discourse, enclosed within the 4 thoughts that turn the mind from samsara. And they're found at the very beginning of Nuden Dorje's Preliminary Liberating Instructions. So then, in the text it says, the life that is conditioned refers to being subject to cause and effect. We're all subject to cause and effect. We're built that way. In order for this body with leisure and wealth to possess meaning, I will abandon the 3 non-virtuous poisonous afflictions, develop diligence in virtuous actions, and protect the vows and commitments of the 3 doors of body, speech, and mind. As explained above, repeating the activity of any conditioned state, whether afflictions, wholesome or sublime states, there are always resultant states of attachment and grasping, dukkha. Therefore, knowing what to adopt and what to discard is an essential wisdom of the Eightfold Path of Noble Beings. So that's what that's referring to, the life that is conditioned. Understanding conditioning, which is a very high wisdom, understanding. And further, from the 4 common foundations found at the beginning of the text, also it's not certain when the hateful enemy of this present precious body, the mar of death, will arrive. I and other beings are impermanent, the time of death being uncertain. All phenomena, all conditions of this world are impermanent, and thus we do not know when we or other beings will die. So it includes mountains, buildings, sounds, or tastes, or anything. We don't know when they'll break apart and crumble into dust or light. So this refers to anicca, to impermanence. Yes? So we have dukkha, we have impermanence, and then we have, as all things are conditioned and transient, all phenomena are empty, tungpa, in Tibetan, of any substantial or solid basis, or anatta. So you go back to the text. In this life, the life is conditioned, impermanent, and empty. So that is Sedi Duje Mitag Tongpa Se. There. So these 3 signs of insight. And I'm not going to go through all of this, but I've been through this so many times about the non-solidity and non-entityness of phenomena. You can read that for yourself. So the next line, so that is going through saying the life that is conditioned and permanent empty is a foundation stone, level of profound insight that needs to be established. Yes? Transience, impermanence, the fact of dukkha, sentient beings that have conceptual minds, that think, feel, react, will all have dukkha, will all experience dukkha. Yeah. And all those beings that are reacting and experiencing dukkha and are transient actually have no intrinsic, ultimate nature you're going to find, like a table. As soon as you peel layers away. So if you peeled yourself away, where are you located? So maybe, because I'm seeing a few quizzical looks still, I'll spend a little time with this. Where are you located? Have you found that yet?
In space.
Are you saying space is you?
No.
You're in space
No.
somewhere?
I'm located. Well, I'm
Where?
whatever.
Where?
Whoever is the I.
Have you found it? So if you have never found it, you keep looking. Is it possible that it actually isn't? Is that possible?
Mm-hmm.
You might come to the conclusion that it actually really isn't a thing. It's a phenomena generated by much activity. So if you stir the ocean a lot, with wind and currents, what do you get? Cyclones, all kinds of disturbances, yes? It gets very rough. What happens when you take away all that activity? You get an externally tranquil, clear, calm ocean. And if you notice that if in a clear, calm ocean, you may have a different experience of the ocean entirely. Okay, we need those three. We need those three great insights. Then it goes to the constituents of the 5 elements. So the next part of that is the constituents of the 5 elements refers to our bodies and subtle energies, the prana, the nadi, and the bindu, made of the qualities of earth, water, fire, air, and space. Notice I haven't said elements. I'm taking the word element out of there. It's not the right translation. It's qualities. There's no such thing as earth, water, fire, and air as elements of something. They function as qualities. To ordinary consciousness, one's habits patterns generally fall in line or agree to what the culture says they are. To a being of insight, of deep penetrative insight, they'll appear as conditioned suffering, impermanent and empty. Through generation and completion stage practices, opening up and ripening empowerments, special insight will dawn. The body is experienced as appearance emptiness, luminous clarity, yet apparent and empty of characteristics. Further experience will eventually dawn as a Buddha field, appearing out of the 5 families as stated in the Yangzab Preliminary Liberating Instructions, a line from the Guru Yoga that says, on page 55, it says, in the pure Buddha field of appearance and existence, the aggregates and elements as a nature of the form of devas, as the yidams. So when one purifies the obscurations of karma, gets to the place of some amala consciousness, stainless consciousness, out of the luminous clarity, the purified channels will start to emerge the experience of Buddha fields and yidams, of the what are called the meditational deities. So this is what's meant as the 5 elements. So the 5 elements being this: earth, water, fire, air as a body, but in fact, with deeper insight, it appears to be a luminous palace of a Buddha field or a Buddha body. That's what happens. That's what that line refers to. The constituents, the 5 elements, will then emerge as the 5 pristine wisdoms. And then the next line, the next part of that says, the constituents, the 5 elements, are complete as a Buddha field of the 5 families. This is what's realized in the generation and completion stages of sadhana, is in fact, this experience is not the 5 skandhas. It can be the 5 skandhas, but as a deeper experience, it's the 5 Buddha wisdoms. And so the 5 families is a short phrase for the 5 Buddha families, which I've put into a chart, and their qualities in that chart. A handy little chart. Okay, the families of Varochana, Kshobhya, Ratnasamava, Amitabha, Amoghasiddhi. Now remembering that all these names are names. Amoghasiddhi doesn't have a label like made in China, made in Japan. You're not going to find Amoghasiddhi written on Amoghasiddhi. It's a human language term to describe something that's pretty indescribable. Okay? And through extraordinary meditation and insight, beings, great meditation masters, have been able to describe the qualities of these various emerging radiances and form bodies. So we have the wisdom of all-encompassing space, the awareness, the expanse of Dharma, Akshobhya, the mirror-like pristine cognition, timeless awareness, and so on. I'll let you read that. And as one becomes familiar with that, we see that's actually the nature of all yidams. So every yidam that you meditate on, every meditational deity you meditate on, is a manifestation of the 5 wisdom Buddhas. is a constituent. Every seed syllable is a manifestation of 5 wisdom Buddhas. Every mantra of enlightened speech is a manifestation of the 5 primordial wisdoms, the 5 wisdom Buddhas. Okay? So let's go back to Samantabhadra. Let's go back to fruiting bodies. The enlightened fruiting bodies, not the conditioned fruiting bodies, but the unconditioned primordial fruiting bodies, called Sambhogakaya, will manifest in 100 different ways with all kinds of subcategories. So let me talk about the taxonomy of this. There's 100 major forms, but they can appear in thousands of different subforms, like subspecies. We call today mostly cryptospecies. They're the same species, but they might have a yellow body. So I've had people come to me and say, I don't think I'm doing the practice of Vajragini right. Why? Because it's appearing to me in a yellow body. What's wrong with that? But it's supposed to be red. Why? So a subspecies of Vajragini is what? Ratna Dakini, the jewel-like Dakini. It's black, the Dakini is black. There must be something wrong with my meditation. Maybe I'm depressed. No, the black Dakini can come out. What about the green and the red Dakini? Half and half. What about that? So there's 100 different manifestations, of which there can be a whole host of subspecies. Did you follow? Okay. They're all manifestations of Samantabhadra, and they're all manifestations of what? The 5 wisdom families. They will be more closely aligned to one of the Buddha families. That's how this taxonomy works. So Amitabha, even though Amitabha has all the qualities of the 5 wisdom Buddhas, Amitabha is closely aligned with the qualities of Amitabha, Chenrezig, let's say. Chenrezig is all the qualities of all the 5 wisdom Buddhas, but it's more closely aligned to the family, to the lineage of Amitabha, which is one of the 5 wisdom Buddhas. Are you following? That's the taxonomy of it. Okay. All of the practices that we do, green Tara, red Tara, blue Tara, white Vajragini, red Vajragini, Hey Vajra, Demchog, you name it, are all the practices to realize the 5 primordial wisdoms, the 3 Buddha bodies, and the 4 Buddha activities. To realize it. That's Tantra. Then below, on page 35, says, imagine walking into a majestic Christian cathedral or a Tibetan temple filled with enormous space, light, color, and sound. You've all experienced this? For those with negative, traumatic, or unwholesome conditioning, a temple, or doubt, deep doubt, right? Temple. Can't stand temples. Bunch of faith, blind faith, right? For somebody else, wow, is this incredible or what? Wow, it's amazing. So it can be an unpleasant space full of bad feelings or discomfort, or if you're in sublime states, it can be a holy space of light, the radiant colors of paintings, stained glass and windows, amazing fragrances, celestial palace of 5 colored lights. That's what we discover is each one of us. Each one of us is a palace of light. So where did this experience of our bodies come from? Isn't it, wouldn't you agree that you have a body? And wouldn't you agree that the body that you've seen in a mirror and in photographs is pretty similar to the body that you feel you have? Pretty similar, right? But not quite, is it? Doesn't match. So what is it that you're actually, when you say my body, my appearance, what is it you're actually describing? Because the picture, have you noticed when you see a picture of yourself, you go, it's not quite right. Or you look at yourself in the mirror and you go, it's familiar, but it's not quite what I imagine myself to be. By the way, it can go both ways, right? Look better than you think you are or not. What is it really when we say my body or my appearance?
Aggregate.
Could you say it's a manifestation of the activity of primordial awareness, or from the very beginning, it's the manifestation or the fruiting of the activity that occurred after the Big Bang, or, when it all started?
Yes, you've made a jump. You've made a leap. That's okay. You've made a leap. I want to go one step back to conventional insight, which is, what is it when you make the statement? What do you feel when you make the statement? Say, my body. I'll try that. Say your name, say your body. Say, my body, my name is Mark. Say your name. What is it that you're actually describing?
A concept.
A concept. Can you feel that concept?
Yeah.
What actually is the statement describing?
Form.
What form?
An idea.
An idea in your mind.
Yeah.
It has no substance. It changes all the time. It could be anything. What's the real body? What's the real body? So if you've been conditioned, which this happens from now known through scientific research, it happens before birth, the mapping of the physical sensations of the body internally and externally. If that's been your experience, you don't know any different, then that's what you are. But if you look very, very closely and you start to actually bring out the radiance of this, what do you get? You get a cathedral of light. And the cathedrals and the temples are all based on the same floor plan of a human body full of light and radiance and enlightened nature. From the altar to the stained glass windows, the whole thing. Including all the temples, and the Buddhist temples are usually based around the floor plan of the 5 wisdom Buddhas. Okay? So that's what that's about. So when you walk into a cathedral or a temple, or a Buddhist temple, it's trying to give you the feeling of the inner radiance of the Sambhogakaya when the mind is liberated of the karmic make-believe. So sometimes I tell people, when a Chinese doctor says to you, for instance, maybe your kidney qi is weak or something like that, I say, and they say, oh, what's wrong with my kidneys? I have a kidney disease. No. The understanding, the model, the understanding of Chinese medicine and how it sees a human body can be different than Western medical tradition sees a body. Is that right, Albert? Very different. It comes from a different view based on experience of what the constituent is of the 5 elements of the Chinese system, correct? So in the same way, when you get very deep into sensation, pure sensation of a body, you begin to see the 5 elements show up. And when a Chinese doctor's working, they're working with the 5 elements. And they can even maybe forget there's a human being there. They're working with the 5 elements, saying, aha. You see? So it's getting to a level that's closer to the radiant Sambhogakaya, pure, free of all karmic traces, displaying this radiant cathedral of light. And some of you, I know some of you have experienced this beautiful radiant cathedral of light that is called our bodies. And sometimes we see it in other beings, right? Some of you have seen it in other beings. They just light up, maybe in a retreat or maybe outside, and you're looking and people call it auras, but actually looking and go, my God, they're just lit up. They're totally lit up. Yeah. And eventually you might actually see beings as the play of the Yidam, actually demonstrating the Yidam characteristics. So yes, correct, but just one step back. So be very careful when you say my body. What are you describing? My arm, my leg is a mapped impression of memory with very little basis in any reality. Okay, let's try this. This is fun. Gotta watch the time here. This is fun. Say my brain.
My brain.
Who has in this room has seen their brain? See, let's just show hands. How many of you over there in Roslyn or over here have seen your brain to have the experience say, my brain?
The actual brain?
The brain.
A picture of it.
No, the brain. So how many times have I heard, oh, I've seen my brain, and say, what, how? I've seen an MRI. As if the MRI, which is an algorithm of a bunch of data points, is your brain. I've even known doctors to do that. I mean, bless their hearts, to say, oh yeah, I'm looking at your brain. No, you're looking at a mathematical algorithm that someone put in to the MRI when they designed it, which they just found is possibly not correct. And they're having to they've just redone a lot of the algorithms of MRIs because they were getting a lot of false data you put in that. It has to generate the data, convert the data into something that looks like a human brain to get reasonable information out of it. Does that make sense? It's not your brain. EEG patterns, electrical activity, is not your brain. It's not your meditation states. It's not what we experience. Getting it? The pain you may have in your arm is not your arm. It's the interpretation of one tiny facet of your arm. But what do we normally say? My arm hurts. Listen to language. Now let's try it with something else. I hurt. I'm happy. Where? Where? Are you getting the feeling of emptiness? Where? It's absolutely hollow. You may as well be talking about rainbows. How many of you go chase after rainbows? Have you found the pot of gold yet? Have you been able to get your hands around a rainbow and grasp it? Have you tried?
Well,
You can try a hose. Yeah, you go like this with a hose and you see the rainbows and you can kind of try to get
all of those ones, yeah.
Yeah, but have you ever captured one?
No, of course not.
So how do we talk and relate to each other as if we've already caught a body, we've caught a flu, we've caught a sickness, we've caught an illness, we've caught joy, we've caught happiness, all these things, and what are they? They're not nothing. What are they? Concepts. And we go further, concepts of the five skandhas, we go further, what are we going to find? The radiant luminosity of emptiness, as Patrick was getting at. Yeah? You can't paint a lineage tree like that unless it's an emanation of the thought, which is bodhicitta. So that's why these are often referred to as nirmanakayas. They're manifestations of the mind of enlightenment. So to the degree that the glass, let's use another metaphor, to the degree that the glass of the channels, the winds and the drops, or the nervous system is distorted through the factory process, is a degree of clarity that you will be able to see about what you're viewing. And that is why professional photographers have some things called $6,000 lenses. There's a reason. Somebody was showing me one that they have $6,000 lens. Well, the images is extraordinary. So what are we carrying? Not to put anybody down, but what kind of lens are we carrying? Make sense? We might be looking through distorted glass, and because everybody agrees that distorted glass is the way it is, that's how we actually keep experiencing distorted glass. Do you believe that the conductor of a philharmonic, Vancouver, Toronto, Berlin, Zurich, experiences the symphony the way most of us do? What do you think? Do you think it's even close? And yet the experience that you're having of the Philharmonic playing, yes, is you're pretty sure that's the way it is that correct? Isn't that cool? And yet that being that's leading it is having an entirely different world experience. Isn't that something? That's what this is like. Page 36. In the Preliminary Liberating Instructions, it says, on top of page 36, in the Buddha field of the victors in my own body, the Buddhas that show up in my body, where do you think they come from? They come out from the channels. That's where you'll first experience it. They'll emerge. In the palace of the channels, the winds, and the essences, or the drops, is awareness, the primordial awareness. The three roots, that's where they come from. So guess where that mandala comes from? It's going to pop out of the heart center. That's where it emerges. Comes right out. And out of that will come the three roots, the peaceful and wrathful deities, in whom I supplicate with devoted mind, bless me to accomplish the rainbow body. So that comes from the rainbow body supplication. All these idams and dakini mandalas are manifesting the 5 aspects of primordial wisdom and simultaneously the same nature as Buddha Samantabhadra. Having arisen, now on page 36, having arisen in the form of the Guru Vodhyana in the bardo, may all sentient beings led by those with one whom has positive and negative connections immediately go to the Kachari abode. It is said in a number of authoritative tantric, this is now the commentary, it is said in a number of authoritative tantric texts that those practitioners who attain to stages of a bodhisattva and have practiced tantric generation and completion stage practices will upon death lucidly experience the Dharmakaya and soon after manifest in the intermediate period in the bardo as a Sambhogakaya body of pure appearance. So the practices that we do, the tantric practices that we do of generation completion stage, are to purify the conception body, the life body, the death body that we go through, so that upon death we actually appear like our inner, we dispense with the outer appearance of our conditioned experience, like a shell, like we break the shell of the mold for making casting gold. And so around this is a clay mold, right, when we're living, and we go around feeling the clay, thinking that we've experienced the dorje within. Yeah? It's like people say, my chakras. And they're, my chakras, things like that. So when you die, when a being dies, all that clinging, held appearance, which we go through when we meditate, we shed bits of it. When one dies, all that mold falls apart, right? And what is experienced is the Vajra. And if we're trained, then we experience not the Vajra, the nature of the Vajra is called the enlightenment mind, for a fraction or longer of a second. We get a good taste of full, complete liberation. Then, due to cause and conditioning, depending on how long one can stay and hold that, then we pass into either the conditioned body takes over again, or we emerge as a yidam form. The mold comes off. Okay? So that's what's meant that in the intermediate period in the bardo as Sambhogakaya body of pure appearance. This is the attainment of what's called pure appearance through the channels. So if you were to meditate long enough, if you meditate long enough in one of the chakras, long enough, especially it's easier in a dark retreat, but long enough, eventually you'll start to see the yidam body emerge. And if you do this long enough and deep enough, it might take months to years, eventually it will engulf your experience and you will emerge in a pure, not an impure. So if you become Vajragini, Kalachakra, Hey Vajra, red Chenrezi, white Chenrezi, white Tara, suddenly, most of the time that's what's called impure appearance body, still mixed with some conceptual taints. I'm white Tara. But the impure body experience means there's nothing left of you. There's simply pure experience of Sambhogakaya. That's called attainment of pure appearance body. That's what's experienced in the bardo when every last bit of this lifetime of conceptual contrivance gets shed. And that's one of the reasons why we practice the generation stage, not only for this life, but for the next life, because if you can do that, then your ability, not you, say what's to get away from you, the ability to teach beings and emanate forms for beings is extraordinary. Fantastic. So then the commentary says, this body is the Yidam body, which is the form of Guru Rinpoche. So remember that Guru Rinpoche, like Samantabhadra, is all the Yidams. Guru Rinpoche is in the middle of the tree. It represents all of the figures. Guru Rinpoche can manifest as any of the Yidams. He manifested as 8 major figures, of which one figure is up there in the corner, the figure of the blue and white figure of Padmasata, which is Vajradhara in union with Yeshishogol. That's one of his 8 major forms. But Guru Rinpoche can appear as Vajragini, can appear as Tara. So even if one appears as Tara, it's Guru Rinpoche. That's why they say all the lamas are Guru Rinpoche. You follow? Mm-hmm. Yeah. This alludes to the understanding that all Yidams are manifestations of the Guru, as all Gurus are manifestations of the Yidam or the Dakini, the inseparable nature called the 3 roots. That's why we practice the 3 roots, so we can see the inseparable nature of the three Buddha bodies, and we can also see the inseparable nature of the Guru, the Yidam, and the Dakini. It is said that there is great capacity to bring all sentient beings to a pure land or pure abode, in this case the enlightened Dakini realm. So with the power of being in the form of a Sambhogakaya, it can liberate a lot of beings. Jamon Control stated, the Sambhogakaya is attained, being the supreme leader and lord of all disciples, especially of all human beings. So this is an extraordinary attainment and greatly beneficial and compassionate. And then the next paragraph in the commentary says, according to the Hevajra Tantra, the Kacharya abode is the realm of mind, not a place. Remember, it's not a place, it's a realm. Either is planet Earth. Equivalent to Dharma Dhatu, that is the pure sphere of the Dharma, an enlightened Dakini realm in which beings who have attained to Anagaman, that is, one who does not return or higher, are reborn and quickly attain Buddhahood. Or if they have great karmic connections with enlightened beings, or they do great prayers, can also attain to that. So the prayer implies that all beings one has connections with, whether positive or negative, are led to these pure abodes by the extraordinary capacity of the attainment of the Sambhogakaya body. So even those with unfortunate encounters, it has been said that they can actually be helped to a pure abode. Is that something? So, wonderful attainment. So I'm going to go right to the end of this text, and then we'll take a break. And then the last line of the aspiration on page 38 of the commentary, having ripened and liberated the whole range of disciples through many emanations, the appearances of one's own primordial wisdom, may they all obtain the unsurpassed ultimate result. Now that's a beautiful that's an absolute beautiful aspiration. Every single disciple, every single practitioner one has a connection with will become completely liberated. Isn't that a beautiful aspiration? One says that over and over. This is assuming, the text is assuming that you're not only striving for full, complete liberation, you're going to attain full, complete liberation. Okay? The last 3 lines are high aspirations, the commentary says, by attaining to a quality of excellent realization and being able to accomplish many manifestations or emanations, or known as tulku or nirmanakaya, and knowing that all these appearances, these emanation bodies, are manifestations of one's own primordial wisdom, we can help guide the whole range of disciples to all obtain full Buddhahood, the unsurpassed ultimate result. Just a second. So all the appearances, all these enlightened appearances are none other than primordial wisdom giving fruiting bodies, to give this mushroom metaphor. Okay? And the degree of fruiting bodies is extraordinary. So you read accounts, which I've read, of accounts of beings going to the Karmapa, lifetimes ago, centuries ago, and saying, could you please give me the transmission of such and such? And I've read, I don't have that, but another Karmapa in another valley has that transmission. So in the case of certain beings, they've identified 5 different, in one lifetime, 5 different emanations. So I remember someone declaring about the Karmapas when they were arguing about who's the real Karmapa. I think maybe it had been the Dalai Lama. No, it wasn't. It was some other teacher saying, I don't care if it's 16 Karmapas. Why not? But one is going to get the throne. So stop arguing about it. But that doesn't mean that they're not all valid emanations of Karmapa. It's just usually one gets the throne. That's all. Because it makes probably administration a lot easier and less confusing. But other traditions, right, like the Drikung Kagyu, there's 2 heads of a throne. In any generation, there's 2 heads of the lineage. It's shared between two different beings. See? Why not? So this is important. So it's about mushrooms. Today we can call it the mushroom teaching. Bunch of mushrooms. Fruiting bodies of primordial wisdom showing up in different forms that look very, very different sometimes, but in fact are carrying the same wisdom capacity with a range of abilities to ripen different beings at different times and different stages, for the purpose of liberating all the disciples or all the beings that have a commitment and connection to the unsurpassed ultimate result. Okay? And I think, Nancy, you had a question, or has it now been?
Well, I have a question.
Okay.
So this line I have chewed on for a while, and
I hope it's not like leather at this point, chewed leather.
no, it gets richer and richer with every. So what I'm interested in understanding more, interested in understanding, is so having ripened and liberated the whole range of disciples, us, for example, through many emanations, would that mean through many incarnations? So we have been at this work for some lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
And at each time,
And emanations even in this life.
even in this life, yes? All of which are the appearance of our own primordial wisdom as it becomes the fruiting body, to use them.
To use that
Okay.
biological metaphor.
So so that when you think of the samsaric cyclical existence, this is what this is talking about. Is that correct?
Let me give you an example. How many people, let's just use this as pretend Lama who has a connection to these beings. How many people here maybe knew me 20 years ago? Is this the same being?
No.
Are you the same being?
No.
So the Lama can take on many different forms even in a lifetime, as can the disciples, for the purposes of liberation. So the experience of liberation may be the same nature, but the forms in which it manifests, I can think of Namja Rinpoche and many other teachers, go through an evolutionary stage of manifesting different qualities within their life for the benefit of those students, to try to ripen those students. Because the actual experience doesn't really change, but the manifestation around it, the growth of compassion, grows and grows and grows, although the refinement of Buddha nature grows and grows and grows. But actually not from the point of view of realization, it really never changes. But the development, the scope of capacity to liberate beings and the range of understanding of compassion and emptiness, that is what keeps morphing and changing. So one takes on different forms for different beings at different times. Just as Namdra Rinpoche is an extraordinary example of that. Within his lifetime, I've met people who said, I never received Vajrayana teachings from Namdra Rinpoche. He's not a Vajrayana teacher. I knew Namdra Rinpoche when he said he wasn't even a Vajrayana. He was star one. I've only practiced such and such. And I only heard him say such and such. He went through an incredible range of forms, as we said here, from psychotherapy to this experiment to that experiment, to trying all kinds of different forms for different beings, and different students had different capacities at different times and ripened in different ways and came back after 10 years or 5 years or 20 years to hear teaching in a different cycle of how they can actually hear the teaching. Which one was Namdra Rinpoche, and was it the same being? It's not the same being.
So it's both then.
It's both and different.
So, for example, if I can share a personal experience, when I met you, there was a click. I mean, it was like I knew you from another time.
Maybe. I'm not going to...
I don't know, but there was a connection. So that's when I think the appearances of one's own primordial wisdom, perhaps not understanding what that was, but there's just it's like a ballet or something, and all of a sudden or a choral group, where all of a sudden you're singing the same.
You know, I have a beautiful experience sometimes. I'll share it with you. It's just absolutely fantastic. Every once in a while, when I'm teaching publicly or going around the world, it's fun. Someone will come up and they seemingly have never met me, or they just came to a couple classes. They sit down. Lama. And to me, I've known them for a very long time, if you know what I mean. And they sit and they say, Lama, could you recommend a Lama that I should study with? I always love that. Of course, I'm having the feeling, I've known this being for so long, it's not funny. They're like my brother or my sister, you know. I go, Yeah, well, I guess you'll have to go on a journey. It's always a laugh to me, you know. It's very funny, right? And then others go, please, could I study with you? There's a profound connection. But others are it might take 5 years, 10 years. I know someone who studied with Namdra Rinpoche, who I knew very well, for I think 10 or 12 years. Really, often in Rinpoche's house, doing things, all kinds of stuff, attending all kinds of teaching. And only after he died, I remember her saying to me, gosh, that was my teacher. I really should have studied a lot more. I never knew it until he passed away. That was my root teacher. That was my heart teacher. So it can be really difficult circling around, making the deal, you know? You know, the pact, the secret handshake pact. And you see that traditionally within stories of teachers, where it took years before the disciple and teacher said, okay, have we come to an arrangement here? We're going to work together for your liberation. And they go, yeah, okay, yeah, it's a mutual thing. So the answer is, if you'd like a story in this world of causal conditions and so on, the answer is yes. It's profoundly deep causal connections. Yeah, and that's really important to understand, that this is not, in a Western mind, there's one life. Isn't that right? And we got to do something in one life, otherwise it's not worth it. And if it's not quick, why would we do it for anything else but this life? Isn't that correct? But from another perspective, it's absolutely preposterous. Because as far as I'm concerned, everything I do in this lifetime is actually for the development, not just for everything I do here on this life, but actually for the next being, which isn't me, coming along and manifesting. That's how I experience it. So there's a big picture here.
Thank you.
So we, there's something really very big, and this is saying it directly. This is telling it directly as it is. Yeah. Very much out of the conceptual fold of a Western modern scientific current viewpoint.
Yeah.
Totally out of it. But I will tell you, that's actually how I see it. So, long working relationships, shall we say?
Yes.
Okay. Even the point where I've had times in my life, I'll share it with you, where someone is asked to study with Namgyal Rinpoche, and or be a mentor or whatever, and Rinpoche's turned to them and said, "No, actually, Lama Mark is actually your teacher, and he has been for a very long time. You just don't recognize it. So go to work." That was his extraordinary ability to see causal connections beyond anything I've ever seen. Just like that. Where you been? Where you going? Even names of previous life, just like that. It's extraordinary. So what I'm going to do after this, there's a colophon here which you can read, the end statement. There's a couple appendices which you can go through. What I'm going to do after the break, which is going to get reading transmission. For those, there's a couple people in the room who have not had the reading transmission of the Yangzab preliminaries, and for their practice and benefit, I will quickly do a reading transmission of that and the Vajrasattva. Okay? So let's take a break of 10 minutes. I'll come back, reconvene, and I'll give a reading transmission. Okay. So that's the end of the commentary on the dedication aspiration prayers from the Preliminary Liberating Instructions.